right, good afternoon. I got 4:33. We're going to get started. Just check on a quick message, quick chat from somebody. So welcome to the October 3rd session of our Love and Accountability Leadership and Wow Experience. Wow Experience. I'm gonna apologize. Well, maybe it's not apology. My video is not working, at least on my camera on my phone for some reason. Maybe that might be better for everybody. As long as you can hear me, you have to see my ugly mug on your screens. We're gonna do a couple things. There we go. Sorry, I couldn't get some technology problems here, but real quick, I want to review just a quick review of the last session. If you did not get a chance to watch it, go back and look at the email. This is a sheet that Vernon created and Joel went through on communication. I would strongly recommend, and we'll take this sheet and take a look at it. We'll make sure to include a copy of it again in the follow-up email that we send out. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but it's a really a good representation of proper and thorough communication. Well, we're going to pick up GSM leadership. We've been talking about Wow experiences. We've been talking about communication. We've been talking about a lot of different things this year, but I'm going to kind of take a little step back to some of the things we talked about in 2021. Specifically, that was leadership. We're also going to try to tie it into some things we've got going on here at GSM currently. And this is a repeat of a portion of one of the sessions that we did really early in 2021, probably February, I think is actually when I went through some of this information. And it also reminded me of some of the training and education that we do. A lot of the stuff we need to do over and over again, what we would call reinforcement training. So this is kind of a piece of that. So relative to leadership, not just GSM leadership, but any leadership, what skills are required for an effective leader to move a group or organization toward advantage? Or worded another way, how can we have a group or organization get better? It isn't enough that a leader be effective, they must also be virtuous. There are plenty of historical examples of effective leaders who were not virtuous. This led to some of the greatest disasters in world history. So if you think history, there are a lot of effective leaders, a lot of leaders who had a lot of people follow them, but it wasn't necessarily to good results. And I'm not sure, I'm really sure I like to talk about this particular topic, but Adolf Hitler was probably the most famous example of that, where unfortunately he was actually an effective leader, but he sure wasn't a virtuous leader. A great leader must have the leadership virtues that comprise habits and ethics of moral excellence that enable an individual to be who a true leader is. So virtuous leaders must comprise habits and have ethics of moral excellence. So this is something that's extremely important. It's not just getting people to follow you, but what is the vision? What is the mission? What is the direction that the leader is taking the group? What is the direction that a leader is trying to get those individuals and groups to follow or her? So those virtues, there's four virtues. There's a fifth one that we could talk about. I'm not going to get into that one today. But a effective and virtuous leader must have candor. Got to be able to have difficult discussions. You got to be able to talk about the truth. You can't be afraid to have hard discussions. They have to be committed. They have to have a high level of commitment if you're going to be an effective and virtuous leader. Got to be committed to the cause, committed to the group, committed to the individuals, committed to taking the group forward. Have to be consistent. The simple way to think about that for me is if you're leading a group, that group shouldn't come in every day kind of making jokes, and especially within that group, about which Stephen is going to show up today. All right. Is it the Stephen that I can go talk to, or is he going to come in with a chip on his shoulder and have an attitude problem? And that shouldn't be a discussion. There should be if you're the leader, it should be a pretty consistent experience with the team every day. And a virtuous and effective leader has to have courage, to do the things necessary to move the group forward. So a virtuous and effective leader must have candor, commitment, consistency, and courage. Effective and virtuous leaders show courage by doing the hard and important things. As a leader, how do you know something is important to do? So some of you may remember this one from last year, but I love this one here. And again, I'm stealing this from other people. Okay, this isn't something that I came up with on my own. But how do you, as a leader, how do you know something is important to do? By the level of how badly you want to avoid it. You feel it's something you want to avoid, it's probably something that's pretty important to do. That kind of goes to that candor and candor and courage, especially. I'm gonna let that one sit there for just a second. By the level of how badly you want to avoid it. You know what? I think too many times we associate that with maybe work or a team that you're leading. But man, that can be parenting, that can be at church, that can be just anything that you're involved with. So how do they do this? How do they deal with those tough situations? How do you help your team move forward? What is it that leaders do in order to make those things happen, to make forward progress occur? It's one conversation, interaction at a time. I think when I was younger, I used to think these type of things would occur with one big event, one giant leap, so to speak. But I've learned that is not how it happens. It happens by us paying attention and being intentional about all these interactions that we have with others. So here at GSM, we have these opportunities on a daily and weekly basis to make an impact, these interactions that we have. And here are some examples. Plan of attack meetings. This is a really good one. I think if we're sticking to our processes and procedures, for the most part, we're having plan of attack meetings, or we're supposed to have plan of attack meetings with so many customer interactions, whether it's a big commercial job, doesn't matter, a residential installation, even service, that we might not call them plan of attack meetings, but if we have some complicated and detailed even service interactions with customers, we're going to have a talk about it. We're talking about it beforehand. And if it's something that's more than just going down and replacing a capacitor, we're having a discussion about how we're going to deal with it. What are we trying to accomplish? What tools do we need? What, do we need help? I mean, we are addressing those things. We just might not call it a POA, but that is an opportunity when we have different levels of individual in the company all interacting and talking. And I think so many times I've been in the POAs where we're so focused on the project that we miss that opportunity for the leadership. Annual reviews and discussions. Now this is the obvious moments that are planned to have these type of interactions. The problem with this one is that the word annual. There can be too long a period of time in between these discussions if we're not careful. So that's when we can make a real impact with our teammates. And we shouldn't be having annual reviews or discussions. There shouldn't be any surprises in those annual discussions, because you should be having discussions and interactions with your teammates, especially ones that you might lead or supervise throughout the year. Again, let me repeat that. There should never be any surprises at these annual reviews, unless maybe it's something that happened the day before. There could be some really strange, unusual situation, but for the most part, that shouldn't be the case. 30, 60, 90-day reviews and discussion. This is a relatively new initiative here at GSM, but it's something that is super, super important with our new coworkers, our new teammates. So if you haven't been if you're a leader and you haven't been involved with this yet, that's a problem. The second piece of that, if you haven't been involved with it, you need to be going to ask HR or your supervisor why I haven't seen any of these 30, 60, and 90-day reviews or discussions. We actually create a sheet. I know the original initiative was in commercial, but we've expanded that to the entire company. But it's extremely important that new team members, that we're intentional about the engagement in that first 90 days and more than just that 90-day review. Historically, we've done a pretty good job of having 90-day discussions. But what we've done a little better, at least on the setup side, is we've got some language and an initiatives that set up that kind of lays out what the exact expectations are for our team members, where they should be, what they should know in that first 30 days, that first 60 days, and then that 90 days, even stretching out to 6 months in some areas. When we talk about coworker engagement, that is something that we heard and saw in the coworker engagement survey that we did back in August. You know, one of the big things was some inconsistency with our annual reviews and some inconsistency with expectations in our teammates knowing where they stand and what our expectations are. So this is a direct way for us to really get a grip on that. If we can get these 30, 60, and 90-day discussions done, it's maybe the best initiative I've seen in my time here at GSM to really engage our new team members. Another big one is job site visits. That is a very, and this doesn't matter whether it's commercial HVAC, commercial service, residential HVAC, home performance, residential service, it doesn't matter. But job site visits might be the best opportunity to discuss specifics, expectations, what's going on in this particular job, safety. There's so many opportunities on job sites to have these discussions and about more than just the technical parts of the job of what's going on. In fact, I have a weekly sheet that I keep of some of the tasks, and task isn't a word I really like, but some of the things I want to accomplish each week, and job site visits is on that every week. So even myself, I want to get out to job sites, interact with customers, interact with our team members, seeing what they're faced. If you're a supervisor and if you're never out on job sites, you're probably missing out, and there could be a lack of understanding of what our teams are dealing with out on the jobs. That is probably the best opportunity to discuss the things going on. Weekly and daily huddles with team members. If you're a leader, that's something I would encourage you to be intentional about. Is having some type of weekly and daily huddles with your teammates. Training sessions, of course, we have very intentional, specific trainings, whether they're weekly, monthly, within all of our divisions. It's also a time for our teams to ask questions, share issues that are going on in the field. And then you've got your everyday typical interactions, right? Somebody walking down the hall, walking out in the parking lot. Talk to them, ask them how things are going, and listen to those answers. So that's just a short list that I literally probably took me 5 minutes or less to come up with those 7 opportunities that we have on a daily and weekly or monthly basis to interact with each other and make an impact. So I'm gonna shift gears slightly because this all ties in together, but last year, when I shared this, I just used the word leadership to use it as an acronym to come up with some skills, some traits, kind of what we view as high-level leadership here at GSM, and what is required of leaders if you're going to be a leader here at GSM. And of course, it doesn't apply just here at GSM. So starting with the L in leadership, and I put this one first on purpose. Probably there's 2 or 3 skills and traits that I really think are important for leaders, but listening may be the most important. I know the team in the residential group has heard this before, and they're probably tired of hearing it, but I believe we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. Use them in correct proportion, which means we should listen twice as much as we talk. Active listening just means you're listening to understand as opposed to listening to respond. Think about that statement for a second. Listening to understand as opposed to listening to respond. I still struggle with that one personally, but I know when I was younger, I was a 99% listener to respond. It's taken me a long time, and I had to be really intentional to try to learn to get better at listening to understand as opposed to listening to respond. Learn. Leaders are learners. All good leaders are learners. I find this one to be a tough one and misunderstood, or many aspiring leaders just don't want to do it. There's another phrase, I'm a big reader. I'm always reading something. Everybody doesn't have to read, and every good leader, in my opinion, is probably a reader or a learner of something, and they are always trying to study and learn something related to leadership or how to get better at their craft, whatever that might be. Love, we use this phrase, love and accountability, for our theme this year, and I like that word. Effective and virtuous leaders generally care about the well-being and circumstances of their teams and team members. How can we support them, give them the tools they need, etc.? If you really want to have an effective team, a cohesive team, a team that wants to go out and serve each other and serve our customers, we got to care about them. We got to care about the individual members of those teams. The E in leadership can stand for enthusiasm. Effective and virtuous leaders have real energy, enthusiasm for what they are doing each day. They understand the why and carry the company or organizational flag and are proud of what they accomplish each day and how the organization serves its customers and team members. If you notice, I didn't say the word, go out and chase your passion with enthusiasm. I think that's actually a dangerous concept. Bring your passion and enthusiasm to whatever it is you're doing. That's slightly different. Good leaders exceed expectations. You hear that? That's one of our core values. So leaders work to go above and beyond, over-promise and over-deliver to create wow experiences, which can lead to raving fans. So that second statement there is something that I have changed recently. And we used to have this discussion and concept about under-promise and over-deliver. Well, I think that's kind of setting a low bar. I think over time, I have come to believe that we really actually need to overpromise and then over-deliver on that promise. Under-promising is setting a pretty low bar from the beginning. So the A in leadership stand for attitude. Of course, when we say attitude, we mean a positive attitude. Right, Naomi? Okay. Negative attitudes will not help us move forward or help anyone reach goals. Daily attitude is a personal decision, and that's one of our core values. Accountability. We talk about this a lot in 2022, related to our love and accountability theme. Good leaders hold themselves and others accountable to the core values and standards of the culture and vision. So this was one we heard, if you remember, from the results that we shared from the coworker engagement survey. This was the one core value that our coworkers said was the least followed of our core values, holding each other accountable. So just remember that. That's one that, in general, we think we need to be better at. Okay, the D in leadership can be dedication. Good leaders are dedicated. They work daily to the core values, standards, and guidelines. Our WOW experience initiatives. This is a good daily question to ask. If you're getting ready to do something, getting ready to make a decision, getting ready to take some kind of action, Ask this question: is this activity or whatever you're getting ready to do helping move myself, my team members in the division forward toward the vision or away from? So is what we're getting ready to do, is it moving us forward, or is it making us stay in the status quo, or moving away from what we're trying to accomplish? In fact, that's probably not a good example, because I don't think there is such thing as status quo. I think you're either getting better and moving forward, or you're moving backwards. So if you can't say yes to that question, that it's moving us forward, it might not be the right action or activity to be undertaking. Good leaders have discipline, so they must stay on the path. This can kind of, when we talked about this, kind of fall in line with consistency, being consistent. We must stay on the path and be consistent with our standards, actions, focus, results, core values, culture, behaviors, interactions, etc. Have to be disciplined. One of my favorite phrases is from one of the guys I follow him in, Jocko Willink. His big thing is discipline equals freedom. If you're disciplined, it gives you the freedom to do other things. The second E in leadership, educate. So this is kind of a two-sided coin here. So good leaders are always coaching, developing team members. They're always asking questions. We called it learning on the L, but good leaders are also always coaching and trying to help their teammates develop. Empathy. Good leaders are empathetic. By empathy, we mean being able to view the world from somebody else's perspective. Put yourself in the shoes of the team or your teammates. As a leader, they may never do it as well as you and may not care as much as you do. However, their intent is almost always to do a good job and do the right thing. So as a leader, can you view that from their perspective? The R in leadership is recognition. Recognize progress and the success of the teams and individual team members. Praise publicly and coach privately. Again, one of our core values. Responsibility. Good leaders take personal responsibility for the success or failure of the team. The success is not on the shoulders of the field team members, it's on the leadership team. I'm gonna read that one again. Take personal responsibility for the success and failure of the team. The success is not on the shoulders of the field team members, it's on the leadership team. Make a mistake, learn from it, and move on. No whining or continual dwelling on past mistakes. All right, the S in leadership is service. We are a customer service company that happens to perform commercial and home comfort services. While customer experiences are needed to not just maintain growth, to maintain growth, but also create raving fans. The original core value, is the sundown rule. Communicate with customers and team members to let them know the stats before the sun goes down. We can't forget that the sundown rule includes applying that to our coworkers, not just our external customers. The H in leadership can stand for honesty. Always be impeccable with your word. A healthy team has open and honest conversations about what is going on within the team, on jobs, and with customers. Humility. Virtuous leaders are humble. They know they have much to learn and search out help from others. Empathy, humility might be the two greatest leadership traits or skills. I mentioned learning earlier, but the underlying definition of humility is you're going to learn if you're humble, and you're going to try to learn. That's why I say empathy and humility together might be the two greatest leadership traits or skills. The I can be integrity. What do we do when no one is watching? We often perform work that the customer does not physically see or can't see. So we must always keep the customer's best interest in mind. Even if no one will ever see the work, the quality standards must be upheld and the customer receive exactly what they pay for or more. Inspiration. As leaders, we have the opportunity to inspire our team members and families to bigger and better things. All right, and the last is the P in leadership, persistence. Never quit. Things will not always go our way. Every job is not going to go smoothly. There will be obstacles. We must accept this and keep moving forward at all times. Change is inevitable. Professionalism. We must always work and act professionally. The community, our team members and customers are watching us to see what type of standard we set as an individual and company. We've got a lot of vehicles on the road that are gigantic billboards, so people are watching us. That standard must be a high level of professionalism. One example is gossip. We cannot have gossip going on within our teams. This type of environment can cause long-term damage to the success of the team, division, or company. Gossip is a topic that we could spend a lot more time talking about, but for the sake of time, we'll leave that for another time. So GSM leadership, we're going to close this one out because we're pushing 5 o'clock. The ultimate purpose of leadership: help members of the team be more successful, both professionally and personally, create more leaders. Now, those two phrases seem pretty simple, but we could break those two sentences down to probably a half a day discussion just on those two things. But help our members of the team be more successful, both professionally and personally. And part of that is however those individuals define success. That's part of getting to know and caring about your teammates, is learning what their definition of success is. My definition of success might not be the same as somebody else here on the team. And then create more leaders. I've shared this one before. This is probably my favorite quote on leadership from Orrin Woodward. Average leaders raise the bar on themselves. Good leaders raise the bar for others. Great leaders inspire others to raise their own bar. All right, that's it for this leadership follow-up. Next session in 2 weeks on Monday, October 17th. At this moment, I have no idea what the topic's going to be. But one thing I want to show this last slide, and we will be sure to include these sets of resources between some books and podcasts that are focused on leadership, but we'll share this information also in the follow-up email when we send out the recording for those who have missed it. There's some really good, some of these books, a couple of these that we've covered already, some of these podcasts we have recommended before. But if you want to kind of take more of a deep dive into leadership, these are some really good resources that will allow you to do that. So thanks for your time, and we will continue these discussions on leadership and WOW experiences. And I hope everybody has a great night. Thank you.